allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on our agenda is items of interest, recognition, and inquiry. Board of Education members, anybody?
I have three things, if
Yes.
nobody else does. Okay, the first one is regarding the Marine City Middle School 7th grade STEM students. A week ago, last Sunday, when we had that fluky snowstorm, they had the 7th grade class, Mrs. McLeod's class, for the third year had their recycling. And this year, it's grown every year. This year, they collected 262 electronic items. So I just wanted to say thanks to Catherine and Mrs. McLeod, and where there were parents and students giving up their time on a Sunday to be there for a great cause. Also, I read where the St. Clair High School tennis team is heading to the States for the 25th year. So
it's amazing.
Their silver anniversary. So that's awesome. And I also read where Coach Ryan Felix and the Marine City JV baseball team, again, volunteered their time. They traveled to Marysville to be baseball buddies for the Challenger Special Needs League. They helped set up, chalk the field, and encourage the players. So I want to thank Coach Felix, and I want to thank the JV baseball players. I know we have just positive things going on all over the district, and if at any time anybody wants to contact me, I don't want to slide anybody. These are just things that I've been told or I hear about, and I just think we have a great school district, we have a great staff, we have great kids, and I think we're just lots to celebrate, and that's what we need to concentrate on. So thank you, everybody.
Mrs. Frank.
I just wanted to shout out to Palms Elementary PTO and especially Alicia Young for, again, doing a fundraiser for our Teens in Need program by supplying us with the needed items, toiletries, personal things to get them through the summer. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dr. Skolka.
Just one, and I want to congratulate the Eddy and Gearing Social Studies Olympiad teams. They collectively did very well against teams across the state. And individually, Corbin Achatz received an honorable mention, and Emily Domogowski and Maddie Chamberlain gold medals. So
Awesome.
well done to them.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Next item, Marine City High School, Costa Rica trip. Suzanne Saibula.
It's actually me, just kidding.
Okay.
I'm not
Hola.
Suzanne Saibula. Hola,
Hola.
buenas noches. I am Kristen Humble, and I'm senora, and I teach in Spanish for the high school at Marine City, the middle school at Marine City, and then also the Riverview program. So I cannot second enough, Mrs. Bivak, that it's like an awesome time to be a Mariner. It's an awesome time to be part of East China School District. Everywhere I go and things we do, like everybody's super excited about, I've got some girls that just made it to states for track. We're in the newspaper.
I'm sorry.
Hannah Coverdale, yeah. She actually got asked to be Miss Michigan, which is like a top 10 thing for the Midwest of the United States. So she's going to be Miss Michigan hurdler after the state meet.
She's fantastic.
So she's amazing. So yeah, just super, super great times. Over on the board is why I'm actually here today. Coaching, teaching, everything. One of the things that we were lucky enough to do this spring break was the board allowed us to go to Costa Rica and do some learning we had 18 people that went. And it was a couple of teachers, 9 kids, and a few parent chaperones. And the trip took us to Costa Rica, the land of Los Ticos. And we were able to meet and talk to people in Spanish the entire trip. We learned a lot of things. It was an amazing adventure, and we laughed about having to maybe do tryouts the next time around because it was very physical. We were swimming, we were kayaking, we were hiking, we were in a couple of different jungles, we went horse riding, we went to hot springs, we zip-lined in the rainforest. I mean, we were all over the place on a tour, and it was phenomenal. So as I'm talking, I'm just going to scroll through. I don't need to teach you about Costa Rica, but I want to show you just some of the things we were able to do and some of the things we could see. We stayed in like just amazing resorts. We ran away from venomous snakes. There were a few of those. I don't want to bring that up at the board meeting and have you go, we don't want you going again. We went to the hot springs hotels, and this is water that gets heated from the volcano that's flowing in Costa Rica. Learned about like wind energy. Saw lots of students. We actually had a time to go to a different couple of schools while we were in Costa Rica and did some service stuff. So, there's a tarantula. We did, I gotta get off this page. Oh gosh, there they are again. We saw capuchin monkeys. These monkeys were actually like, this was our hotel room. So they were like knocking on the door like, hello, hola, ¿tienes comida para mí? And we were like, no, go away. We planted trees to help with a reforestation. So we did some service work to talk about the importance of preserving natural resources. When we were in the school, we actually got to meet and greet, students and speak in Spanish. We had a girl that celebrated her birthday, so we got to do some birthday traditions. In the school that we went, all of the kids obviously only speak Spanish, and our students got to use their Spanish and have a lunch with them, and they taught us a little bit about what it would be like to go to school in Costa Rica, where K through 7 are all in the same building with one principal who is also their teacher and also their athletic director and coach. They, of course, only played football, which is soccer, and it was just a super, super experience, eye-opener, to our students in many ways. So, there's crocodiles. We saw a lot of wildlife. We went in like jungle safaris. We swam in the ocean. We got to learn how they make the ox carts, and that's like a tradition that goes back hundreds of years. Just an amazing experience, and I can't thank the board enough for allowing us to have that kind of opportunity to take kids and actually make what we're teaching them applicable, and for them to go like, wow, this isn't just a language Senior Max and Senior Humble speak, to see the world and go out and experience this was unbelievable, fabulous time, and I just wanted to take the time to thank you guys for allowing us to do that. It was amazing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for taking your spring break to do that. And also, thank you for coaching the track, because I know you won the Marysville
Read my blogs. No,
invitation. So, thank you, Kristen.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is Winter Athletic Awards. Mr. Chris Ming and Mr. Jeff Cook.
Good evening, President Bewer, members of the board, Dr. Skelka. Tonight I am playing the role of Mr. Ming, and I have the privilege of presenting the Winter Athletic Awards for Marine City High School. Our first recognition tonight is a team recognition. We are recognizing the Marine City High School boys bowling team. They were state finals qualifiers.
Awesome.
And on that team, on the varsity boys bowling, we are recognizing Randy Carnahan. He was a state finals team qualifier. Justin Stanek, state finals team qualifier. Ian Francis, state finals team qualifier. Robbie Vandeveld, all-conference state finals team qualifier. And finally for the boys, Jonathan Dean, all-conference regional champion, state finals team qualifier, state finals individual qualifier, and all-state second team. On the girls varsity bowling, we're recognizing Alyssa Crampton, all conference, MAC Gold Tournament champion, state finals individual qualifier, and all state second team. For Marine City High School varsity swim and dive, we are recognizing Michael DeVlamick, all area first team. And we're also recognizing Jared Bedard, MAC Silver Dive Champion Regional Qualifier. Jared is also coming from his golf practice this evening. And finally, for Marine City High School, we have varsity girls basketball. Tonight we are recognizing Carissa Austin. And I have to read off my sheet because she's got a lot on her screen. Carissa is all conference, all area first team, all state honorable mention, both for the Detroit Free Press and the Basketball Coaches Association of Michigan. Oh, wow. Carissa has school records for number of 3.5. She has 6. Number of threes in a game at 8. Free throw percentage in a season at 78%. She also holds the school record, and she is in the MHSAA statewide record book for number of threes in a season at 71. Number of threes in a career at 156.
Wow.
Carissa is a junior, so we get to watch her again next year, and I'm sure she's going to add to those totals. Thanks, guys.
Way to go, guys.
Next, we have Dr. Jeff Cook from St. Clair High School. Thank you.
Good evening, President Bewer, Dr. Skalka, members of the board. Tonight we're going to recognize teams and individuals from St. Clair High School for their accomplishments over the past winter season. Somebody's messing with me back there. The first award goes to our varsity competitive cheer team. They were regional qualifier, and they were academic all-state honorable mention as a team. I believe Coach Chris Nesbitt is here. Yes, there she is. Individuals, Maya Licavoli, all league, all district first team, and all region second team. Annalise Merchant, varsity cheer, all league, all district first team, all region honorable mention. Kylie Percha, varsity cheer, all league, all district first team. Allison Shunk, all league, all district first team, all state academic first team. Jesse Ryan, all-state academic first team. And coaches Chris Nesbitt and Casey Verbecki were the varsity cheer Mac White coaches of the year. For the sport of varsity boys swim, Cannon Brooks, all league, all area first team, and state finals qualifier. Christian Dunges, all league, all area first team, state finals qualifier. Tristan Fraley, all league, all area first team, and state finals qualifier. Adam George, all league, all area first team, state finals qualifier, all state first team. And I don't have it up there, but Adam broke a whole ton of school records this year, too. We had to buy more letters for the board. William Oldford, varsity swim, all league, all area first team, and state finals qualifier. Evan Warner, all league, all area first team, state finals qualifier, and all state first team. In the sport of basketball, Ben Davidson, All-League, All-Area First Team, and the MAC Gold MVP, and he was also a finalist for the Boys Basketball Player of the Year for the Blue Water area. Brooke Mon, who I think is at a softball game right now, in varsity basketball, All-League, All-Area First Team. And those are representatives from this past winter sports season. Congratulations.
Oh, that's good. Oh, scooch together, you guys. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
Very good. It's not upside down. 1, 2, 3.
What is Mr. Alley's name? He often follows that.
Good evening. On behalf of the St. Clair County Association of School Boards, I am pleased to present a check for $600 to each of our recipients tonight. This is the 26th year that the County School Board Association has awarded scholarships, checks to students who are planning to pursue a teaching degree. Could I have Sabrina Ford please come up?
Can't shut that.
And your teacher? Is she here? Thank you. Sorry. Our Marine City High School recipient is Sabrina Ford. Sabrina plans to attend Oakland University where she will study special education. She is the daughter of Brian and Lisa Ford. Since kindergarten, Sabrina has known that she wanted to be a teacher. She said it is the connections made with students that demonstrate how much teachers genuinely care for their students. Kim Schonk is the teacher that connected most with Sabrina. She said not only does Mrs. Schonk connect with each of her students, she cares about their well-being. Further, Sabrina says Mrs. Schonk is more than a typical teacher. She is more like family. Congratulations.
Hey, Jim. Jim.
Yeah.
Please wait. Lauren Melberg. And Mr. Carlson. The recipient for St. Clair High School is Lauren Melberg. Lauren also plans on attending Oakland University where she will study elementary education with a minor in vocal music. Lauren is the daughter of Joshua and Deanna Melberg. Working with children, whether it was babysitting or working in the nursery at church, influenced Lauren to choose teaching as a career. As a result, she plans to give back to the next generation and help children grow and learn. Throughout her education, Lauren has had amazing teachers, but it is Rick Carlson who is credited with being the most influential in her decision to pursue teaching. Lauren says she wants to be the teacher, just like Mr. Carlson, who has the abilities to change lives and really make a difference, just as he did in her life. Aww. Congratulations.
We need to get in the middle.
Yes.
We're on our way.
Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Motion is needed for the approval of minutes, regular Board of Education meeting March 21st, 2016, corrected. Regular Board of Education meeting April 25th, 2016. Approval of payment of bills, financial statement, schedule of investments. The Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to enter into the one-year administration management contract to Good Marks for Schools Employment Services, GMS, effective July 1st, 2016, for the employment of Joyce Lemmer as Pine River Elementary principal. F, the Michigan Tenure Act requires that the board be informed of the progress of probationary teachers. Christian Washburn will receive tenure under the provisions of the Michigan Tenure Act at the end of the 2015-16 school year. Approval of the spring 2018 Marine City High School Costa Rica trip.
Mr. Buer, I requested that we pull item A1 and B off of the agenda prior to the meeting.
I can't pull A1 off because it's a revision from, I don't want to go 3 months without approving the minutes of a meeting.
Correct. I just, I don't have discussion on it. I'm just going to be voting differently on that.
That's exactly the purpose, is that you, through your vote, have the right to state your position.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Well, no, I requested prior to the meeting to take that off, and so just the March 21st, 2016 corrected and item B. That's all I requested, so.
I do not, and again, I'm not going to go out 3 months without approving.
I understand that. It'll pass, but
So you're,
I'm just going to vote no.
okay, all
That's
right.
all.
I made a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
But you can't do that. I already requested, according to policy,
We
one
can,
board member can pull it off
Correct. And
without a vote.
Without a vote, that's right. It has been pulled,
Yep. Okay.
and so your motion is to approve the amended consent agenda. Correct.
Do we know why it's being pulled off?
Well, the issue with B and payment of bills, I again want to state that these are bills that have already been paid.
Right.
These are bills that overwhelmingly reflect previous board action. For example, you previously have approved the construction bids for the lintel work at Pine River, right? That covers every bill that comes in within that, and that's where now those individual bills to subcontractors for materials, everything else, is now reflected in the consent agenda,
Right.
so that people can see the progress. You've already approved all of these
Right.
things. So, again, any board member has the right, via their own vote, to state their position. The idea of pulling things so that we can vote for part of the consent agenda but against others, either you vote for the consent agenda or you don't.
I don't see it that way. That's not the way that.
Why do you want to have the corrected
What's your
minutes
reasoning?
pulled?
Under, I don't know what page it's on in the packet because I have it separately here, but under the public comment section, there was a part in there that was stated that was not said. So the individual, Mr. Longuski, that got up, it says the last comment made by Trustee Richley, which he never said that. He said the last comment
Okay.
made. So, I mean, this was already something we already discussed at the last meeting, so.
And something else that we already discussed is that we asked that because you receive your board packet nearly a week in advance, that you not just call and say, I want something removed, but you say, I want it removed for this reason, so that we can go through and make the corrections so we don't have to spend time. That's the purpose of the consent agenda. So we reached back out to you the very day that you requested that these items be pulled. We reached back out to you to say why, so that we could indeed make corrections if necessary, and we're never responded back to as to why.
With all due respect, I sent the message to Mrs. Vargo, which of course was sent to you, which I would expect.
Yes.
But you sent it to the rest of the board. And so, if you really wanted a response, you would have sent it to me, so.
No, I
And
believe,
that's a violation of the Open Meetings Act if I responded to that email, so I'm not going to do that, so.
What do we need to do to just move on from this? Do we need to just go C,
We vote on the
C
consent
through
agenda.
G? Can I make a motion to approve
Yep.
C through G?
You're going to approve the amended consent agenda. Support?
Support.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. So carried. Item 5, recognition of persons wishing to
Nope.
address the board.
No.
you'd have to take up the other items in the action agenda.
So separate motion.
So are we looking for a motion to approve the two things that were
I was
amended?
under
Is that
the
what we're
impression
looking
from our
for?
last,
No.
I was under the impression from our last investigation that once something is pulled from the agenda, we can't vote on it until the next month. Is that correct?
No.
It's an interpretation of the policy. It's vague enough that you could do it either way.
Okay.
So, but I don't, but right now, you're not in a position, you remove those from the consent agenda, so to take action, I would believe that they need to go down to item 8 into the board agenda items. Or you
Okay.
could put them in 7 for further discussion and then act in 8 if there's any reason for further discussion, though by the very making of a motion and having it seconded allows for discussion. So I would move the 2 items to 8 and address them there.
Agreed.
One item.
No, payment of bills.
I didn't hear him state that.
A and B.
You know what? Can I just go back to this approval of minutes, this A? Because I looked up on Robert's rules, and it says, motion to approve minutes is not necessary. They either are approved as read or as corrected without a vote. It also says that the treasurer's report is never adopted or voted on unless it's been an audit. And all we're doing is, according to Robert's rules, I don't think we have to vote on to approve the minutes.
Yes, we do, actually.
Well, according to Robert's rules,
It's an interpretation of Robert's rules.
Right.
The board has always voted on those items.
okay.
Well, it's required by law to vote on those 2 things, so.
Well, and B, the approval of payment of bills, the bills have already been paid. So I don't understand why what's the deal
We're not supposed
with
to be
B?
discussing this right now. We're supposed to wait until there's a motion on the floor for either one.
Okay, I'm
We're gonna
sorry,
move on to
Trustee
discussion
Richley.
items.
I think we're on number 5.
Number 5, recognition of persons wishing to address the board. Seeing none, we move on. Report, superintendent report, summer feeding program.
Yes, for the 3rd summer in a row, we will be participating in the Michigan Department of Education Meet Up and Eat Up summer feeding program. Once again, it will be taking place out of Marine City Middle School, 11 a.m. to noon from June 20th through August 25th. All of this information is on the homepage of the district website, and this is available to any school-aged student, regardless of whether they're enrolled or not, or regardless of whether they're a district resident or not. So if a family has some visitors in from out of town and all the kids want to go over and grab some lunch, they're more than welcome to do so. We will also be participating with East China Rec Department again, and we will be serving lunch out at the rec activities at East China Park as well. So we continue to look to try to provide services to our community 12 months a year.
Just a question on that. Who provided that, when we did it at East China Park, who provided the vehicles and so forth to be able to serve the food out there?
We would use one of our vans.
Use one of our
Yeah,
vehicles,
and just
okay.
we have a volunteer and they take them out there.
Okay, awesome. I didn't know if I had to be specific food carrier or,
No, we're good.
All right.
All right. EC update. We had an initial purchase agreement with Mr. Robert Wolfson that we know expired, and we worked toward trying to reach a subsequent agreement, but could not. As a result, both the district and Mr. Wolfson have mutually agreed to part ways. Since that time, we have had 3 inquiries on the building itself that has resulted in 2 offers. And the details of those offers will be provided as informational items in closed session, but will not be discussed or debated. That is for the open meeting probably at some point in June. But right now, because you have multiple offers, you board would not be wise in making those public, especially with a third person, because it would be, you need to work with the people individually. So.
Awesome. Next item, district financial reports. Mrs. Tina Thrift.
Good evening, President Bewer, members of the board, Dr. Skalka. Tonight I will be reviewing 2 proposed budgets, the final budget for fiscal year 16, our current year, and the original budget for fiscal year 17. I don't think anybody finds finance very exciting. The room kind of cleared out. To begin, first, I will solely focus on fiscal year 16. This slide is providing an overview of the 3 budgets for 2016 for review and comparison. First, we developed an original budget and presented to you for review in May of 2015. And in June, it was adopted. This original budget was based off of assumptions, of which the state age budget was not finalized at that point. It estimated a decrease of a pupil enrollment of 67. Foundation allowance was applied at $7,718. We anticipated a decrease of instructional staffing by 3 FTE. It reflected an increase of MESA healthcare rates at 6% and 100% of the State Affordable Care Act fees. And the MIPSTER's retirement rate was applied at 25.78% of applicable wages. You can see revenues were estimated at $39.6 million, with estimated revenues at $40.3 million. This resulted in a use of fund balance of $637,000. It was estimated to leave us with a fund balance of $3.8 million and a 9.4% of fund balance to budgeted expenditures. I do want to point out at this time, the district was not anticipating the cost associated with the return of 2 furlough days and a half step to the EA members. So it wasn't until the revised budget that was presented for review in December and adopted in January. Actual decreases in pupil enrollment were applied. So we originally thought there was going to be a decrease of 67, but the actual was 73. So that was an additional $46,000 in revenue that we had to adjust for. Instructional FTE was at 2.5 due to a mid-year new hire. Wage and benefit adjustments to the ECEA group to return the 2 furlough days and the half step were adjusted in this budget. There was an increase in the MIPSTERs, the pass-through 147C. I bring this up every time. The revenues and the expenditures equal each other, but I do have to record them. That was approximately $300,000. So you can see revenues are now, they were anticipated at $39.9 million, with expenditures at 40.9, or just about $41 million. At this point, we were anticipating a $1.06 million use of fund balance, leaving us with a fund balance of $3.3 million, or 8.21% of fund balance to budgeted expenditures. So I know this is a review, but a lot happened in the last year, so I wanted to kind of go through and remind us where we started, what we changed, and where we're going to end up. So the final budget for fiscal year 16, I'm estimating the revenues at just slightly above, at $39.96 million. Expenditures at 40.7, with a use of fund balance of $770,000, leaving us with a fund balance of $3.6 million and a fund balance of 8.97% of budgeted expenditures. On this next page, it's going to further define what those adjustments are and how they affected the projected fund balance use. The $636,000 from the original budget was decreased by the MIPSTER's 147C, and that was net of the additional decrease of the students. So our revenues went up about $280,000. That just about nets the required expenditures of $300,000. But the big line item in this amended budget was a few mid-year retirements and the 2 furlough days and the associated benefits. So that's what led us to the $1.06 million projected fund balance usage. In this final budget, the adjustments that were made, minor adjustments to revenue for some grants and the sale of fixed assets. We had some unused equipment and vehicles that we performed an auction, and we brought in about $50,000. There were more mid-year retirements, so this reduced our expenditures at about $250,000. These mid-year retirements were 2 instructional staffing. I believe they happened the end of December and January. They were 2 custodial. I also made adjustments to purchase services at just about $100,000. I had to increase it. Our participation in dual enrollment is increasing quite rapidly. And then what you're also noticing in this line item, as some of the custodial group are retiring, there's a transition from the wages and the benefits to the purchase services, so that it goes down in one area and then it increases in another area. We did incur some decreases in our natural gas and fuel. I decreased the natural gas line item by about $50,000, but the diesel gas I decreased by just about $100,000. We're averaging $1.49 a gallon for this year. We purchase about 93,000 gallons of fuel in a given year. Just 2 years ago, we were averaging $3.24 per gallon. So that was pretty significant. But I am going to note further on in the original budget, this is an appropriate time to bring it up, I did return those budgeted line items back to their original placement because we can't determine what's going to happen to fuel in the next year. So I did the same also with the natural gas, not knowing what kind of winters we're going to experience. The last line item is the capital and other. That did increase. I added $40,000, and you will see on the within your agenda there is a proposed request to purchase a maintenance vehicle truck and a John Deere Gator. And then there's also a van in the cafeteria budget. You'll see that reflected in there. All of this is decreasing our projected use of fund balance down to $770,000. So at this point, I'm I've concluded fiscal year 16. And before I move on to 17, is there any questions or is there anything that you would like me to further expound on?
I would like to remind the board, this is the second revision or the final revision during the fiscal year, but then it'll also be, we'll have an audit
Right.
in the summer and October, which when those numbers are reported, will finalize this, and you'll know exactly where you stand revenue, expenditure, and fund balance wise.
Right.
Okay, moving on to the next fiscal year, 17. What I did with this slide is, all I did was kind of progress the columns, and I left the amended budget for 16, the proposed final budget for 16, and then I added the original budget for 17, so you can compare. In the original proposed budget, I'm estimating revenues at $39.4 million, expenditures at $40.1 million, and anticipated use of fund balance at $733,000, dropping our fund balance levels below $3 million, and fund balance levels of 7.27% of budgeted expenditures. So what this original budget was based off of, the assumptions, we're projecting pupil decrease of 87. These 87 pupils, 75 of which are East China school district pupils, and the remaining 12 are out of the local parochial schools. After we did analysis, we had found it was costing us more to provide the support than what we were receiving through our revenues. The foundation allowance, the state budget has not been finalized yet, but out of the State House and Governor's recommended budgets, there's an increase to our foundation allowance of $105, leaving us at $7,823 per pupil. I maintained at risk at $174 per pupil. I did not receive any communication on that yet. MIPSTER's 147C, the pass-through, the rate does increase from 10.53% of applicable wages to 11.7. The tricky thing on this category is they actually provide you funding based off of the prior year salary levels. So if your labor dollars are going down, you actually will receive a little bit more than what you would apply at 11.7. So when I calculated it, it pretty much maintained its fiscal year 16 levels. So, and we'll see this later on in the presentation. The MIPSTER's employer cost, there was a reduction from 25.78 to 24.94%. That was a substantial decrease for the district. I was very pleased with that. Healthcare cost, 10.73%. Plus, Mason now is requiring employers to pay 100% of not just the state Affordable Care Act fees, also the federal. And the federal was the bigger portion. And we will see how that's going to impact us in a later slide. Instructional staffing, we're projecting a decrease of 5 FTE. To date, we have 10 retirements on record, and then we will be replacing 5. So the 5 full cost reductions, and then there will be the difference between the higher wage and the lower wage. But I also don't want you to forget, when you have a mid-year retirement, you will also capture some additional savings that you didn't get to capture in the previous year. Okay, to review revenue by its sources, I have 4 columns up there. The source is identifying, what type it is. And then I'm comparing the fiscal year 16 final to the 17 original, so you can see the projected change. The local, a decrease of $82,000. That is primarily consist of the fixed asset sale of about the $50,000. So there was a few other minor adjustments in there, but the $50,000 of the fixed sale is mainly what's made up of that line item. The state, that's our decrease in our pupil enrollment, $471,000. I do want to remind you that the foundation allowance calculation, it's just not a straight decrease from the pupil enrollment. It's based off of a weighted average. And there's been a few formulas, proposed formulas, to help offset these reductions, but until the state budget is actually finalized, we won't know. I based this budget off of what last year's was, 90% of the fall, and then 10% of the prior spring or February count. Federal, I'm showing a slight increase in the revenues, and all that is a transition of carryover from Title I, Title II monies. If we don't use it all this year, then we'll get to use it next year. So those 4 line items, I'm showing a reduction in revenues of $518,000.
Ms. Thrift,
Yes.
is it fair to say that the local sources of $14 million reflects the 18 mil non-homestead?
Absolutely, it does.
Thank you.
We are at about $13.8 million of that is a result of the local taxes that we collect.
And I'm foreshadowing, we'll talk about this a little bit later in the meeting.
Okay. Okay, moving on to the expenditures. First, I'd like to portray the expenditures by the major function category, so you can look at it in the broad sense before I start to drill down and look at it in a few different ways. Instruction, of course, we've already talked about the retirements that we're experiencing for next year. You're seeing a reduction of just about $500,000 in that category. Added needs is a slight increase of about $21,000. Supporting services. Supporting services is like transportation, maintenance, central office, the principals, that type. A slight decrease at $83,000. And those are totaling $555,000 reduction to the expenditures. Okay. So here's the expenditures, the same amount of money. I'm just presenting them in another way so that you can look at the type of expenditure and what it's costing. You can see the reductions or increases. On the far left-hand side, I have salaries, benefits, purchased services, supplies, materials, capital outlay, and other chargebacks. Again, fiscal year 16, the final budget, comparing it with the original budget for 17. Salaries, $608,000 reduction. Benefits, $96,000. The next slide, I'm actually going to talk about benefits more in depth because it's a very volatile group of expenditures, and a lot tends to happen. And you just can't look at that one line item to understand what is happening. The purchased services, a slight increase of $86,000. And again, I'm going to remind you what happens when we incur retirements within the custodial group and we transition that over to our purchased services line item. So you see a reduction in salaries and benefits and then an increase in purchased services. Supplies and materials, an increase of $108,000. Here's where I have returned diesel fuel line items, natural gas, those types of things back to their prior levels until we can better estimate what it's going to cost us in the year. Capital outlay, I reduced it by the $40,000 for the proposed purchase of the vehicles that you're going to talk about soon. And other chargebacks, a slight decrease. And just so that you guys understand what the other chargebacks are, is we sell fuel, or actually Dean Transportation, they fill their vehicles up here, and then we charge them back. So that comes across as a chargeback and a reduction to the expenses. On the right-hand side of this slide, I like to put the percentage of the budget so that you can understand what components are actually absorbing most of our expenses. And you can see for both years, both salaries and benefits, they take up about $85,000 to $86,000, and they're pretty consistent. I'm sorry,
I mean,
86%. Thank you.
Right. This
If I could go back one.
Sure.
Please. You mentioned on how custodial and transportation retirements results in a shift from salaries to purchase services, but it would be also fair to say that's not a dollar-for-dollar shift.
That is not a dollar-for-dollar shift, because it costs more to pay for retirement costs,
Right.
FICA, and health and dental than it does to pay for purchase services.
Great. Thank you.
That actually, it's perfect that you asked or mentioned that. The thing that I had a question about the number of retirements from support staff as a whole, from custodians to secretaries / paraprofessionals, as well as transportation. How many retirements were there from the district where it would transfer over to contracted services?
Are you just inquiring of last year? Because that,
Correct.
Okay.
That would affect this budget figure.
this budget figure right here, well, we had 2 custodial retirements for the end of this year. There was 2 mid-year, Trustee Richley, where there'd be half-year savings for last year and then a full year for this year. The instructional staffing is currently at 10. We had a support staff of 1 mid-year.
That we did not replace.
That we did not replace.
Okay.
That is correct. I would actually have to check on the transportation because there's nothing coming to mind at this point.
Okay. So the $86,171 figure would be from how many? Would that be from like 2.5 custodians or 4? I don't.
That would be from 4, actually 3, because then if you count 2, if there was 2 half year, it would be 3.
Yep,
I'm sorry.
yep,
It would be
yep,
3.
yep. My math.
Yes.
Anyway, okay. Then
Trustee Richley, I do want you to understand that we have quite an array of purchase services that occurs throughout the district. Like, when I identify these line items, they are the major component, but it doesn't mean that it is all made up of exactly what I'm talking about, because there's inspections.
Right.
There's legal services, there's just a whole array of purchase services that we do as a district.
right. My concern, I guess, and I don't think this is probably the time to be bringing this up, but I think that we should look into how much the savings have been over the years, if any, with regard to purchase services, because I hear a lot about how we bring in outside contractors to do things that our custodians that have been there for 30, 40 years, knew how to do already. So I think that's something that should be looked into, that potential, for increased expenditures that we wouldn't have to incur if we didn't do that. But
I performed the analysis at the end of last year because we did transition a lot of services over to purchase services, and we were kind of waiting to see what was the outcome. I did do the analysis, and our major savings was through the purchase of equipment. And we knew that a lot of our equipment was becoming it was breaking down, it was becoming incapable, and for us to purchase the equipment, we needed to still maintain our lawns and the snow plowing. That was quite extensive for us, and if I remember correctly, that was part of our decision-making. But I do look at this at the end of every fiscal year to make sure that we have made the right decision.
I think it's also important to note that every time we have a retirement, there is considerable thought given to the replacement or not replacing. For example, we previously stated that we did not replace the secretarial position, but we also had a retirement in the maintenance area, skilled trade position that was previously a contracted service. And we specifically looked for and hired someone who has significant HVAC experience so that we in turn would have that kind of skill on staff, not as a contracted service, so that we no longer, or we wouldn't have to rely on a Bumbler contracted service as much as we would if we didn't have that skill on staff. So I understand the thinking about contracted services, but I also have to understand it's not always in one direction. Every position is looked at very thoughtfully as to how we can best get that work done. And in this particular case, we brought someone in onto staff that was previously contracted in order to save money on other contracted services. So I'll leave it at that, but there is thought that goes into these decisions.
Just one last thing, the administrative fee for each employee,
It runs about 26%
per employee, and then,
of purchase service.
okay.
But if you take FICA, that is at its rate of 7.65, and then our retirement rate, it was 25.78, and it's 24.94, and then you have unemployment, workman's comp, and then the health and the dental. So just that simple math, there is savings at some point.
Just one last thing, that the equipment that we're purchasing tonight, I know our contract with Chartwell's allows for that, but that's something that also concerns me. That
Well, when we get to that item on the agenda, we will explain further how those purchases are being made. Is that all right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, moving on to the last view of expenditures, and that's the benefits. I wanted to show you how volatile our benefits can be. Slight increases in our group term life and long-term disability, and I have a typo on that. That's supposed to be severance. $2,100. Our health, dental, and vision, I previously indicated it was just under 11%. That's costing the district over $270,000. Retirement in FICA. There was a decrease in the retirement, less than 1%. And then all the employees and their wages that we're not replacing, that's a decrease of $370,000. So those are netting a reduced expenditures of $96,000 in this proposed budget. Okay, do you have any questions on the general fund? Because I was going to move over to the cafeteria. And I think, Trustee Allen, this is maybe where I can answer or provide you some information. The cafeteria budget, I made slight adjustments to the revenues and the expenditures relative to the sales and reimbursements from our free and reduced. Our free and reduced rates have been dropping each year. They're currently at about 27%. 2 years ago, they were at 32%. So this is right in line with our pupil enrollment that's decreasing too, so they would go hand in hand. I am projecting that for the final, for 16, that we will still be increasing our fund balance by about $56,000, leaving us with a fund balance of $360,000. The fiscal year 17 original budget, another slight decrease to our federal subsidies. And in here, there is an increase for the capital line item for the van. Trustee Ritchie, the contract we have with Chartwell's is a reimbursable contract. And what that means is we reimburse them for their wages and their expenses, and then we pay them just a little bit of money for each meal that they serve. But our responsibility is the equipment. So any kind of monies that we have in our fund balance, that's our responsibility to replace them as the need arises. I have had conversations with Julie Humphrey. We are anticipating some repairs to some of our ovens and replacement of our coolers. I do want to point out that our fund balances are quite healthy, and there are restrictions by the MDE at what kind of levels that we can have for our fund balance.
The purchase of the van for food service purposes will come out of the fund balance from the cafeteria fund, not out of the general fund. And that fund balance and cafeteria fund, as Ms. Thrift just said, is specific to replacing equipment such as the vans, the ovens, et cetera. So it is not a draw on the general fund.
Theoretically, couldn't you reduce the cost of lunch for kids and then take it out of there?
I love the idea of doing that. The MDE also says that there are certain levels that we have to charge for our meals. There's a tool that says if we receive so much for free and reduced rates, that cannot subsidize the rate that we charge non-free and reduced lunches. So they dictate to us that we have to raise our rates at a certain percentage each year to make sure the equity is in line.
Do you remember that we begrudgingly had a 3-year plan for raising lunch prices, not because we wanted to, but
Yes.
because we had to by state mandate? That's what's happening.
Now, the last thing, I guess, the last concern I have with regard to the vehicles, which I'm sure we'll get to later on, but the thing, I guess, how many vehicles do they currently have?
I can't answer that right now without going into my records. Kurt Grizelka may have a better estimate.
Kurt,
What we have at
vehicles
this
that are
point.
specific to food service that is servicing our 10 different facilities?
Food service has 2 vans right now, and one of which is in need of replacement.
What are the age of the vehicles?
I believe the one that needs to be replaced is over 12 years old and
Okay.
very high mileage.
Okay.
And I can tell you for sure that it's rotted out underneath because I've been underneath it in the building over there. It's in pretty bad shape.
Okay. Thank you.
We all set with the cafeteria budget? And the last one is our latchkey. Our latchkey budget, we've actually seen an increase in the last few years of their revenues and in their attendance. So I've made slight adjustments. I've increased their revenues. Traditionally, I've maintained it at the $500,000. I've increased it to $525,000. Slight increases in their expenditures also. For the final budget, I'm projecting a slight increase, just over $10,000 to the fund balance, leaving them $156,000. For next year, also a slight increase to the fund balance of $14,300, leaving them with $170,000. Do want to remind you also that this fund is self-supporting. That concludes my budget presentation, unless you have requests or questions.
Any additional questions?
I'm good. Thanks, Tina.
Thank
Thank you so much, Tina. Next item on our agenda is information discussion items, certification of taxes.
President Beaver, normally this would appear as an action item because normally we have this information in its final state at the May meeting. The tax assessors have until the end of the first week in June, but normally they are done. They've informed us this year that they will not be done in that timeline. And so we present this information tonight. In fact, it says 3.04, and that's already, we've gotten word that that may go down to 3.00. So we will ask that, and that is the 3 taxes, the 18 mil non-homestead, which would be on business and second homes. That makes up approximately, as Ms. Thrift said, $14 million of our budget. That 18 mils is statutory, cannot be changed. The 0.4 is the voted sinking fund. The debt retirement, we talked about that a great deal in our bond campaign. 3.04 was what it was this current year, but we we levy only what we need in order to pay the principal and interest on outstanding debt. And so that's why we wait for this information from the assessors of all the different cities and townships, so that we can find out what that SCV is and what that tax rate will be. Again, we're going to hold a special meeting on the 13th of June, because we'll have the information finalized at that point, so that we can approve those millage rates and then get those approved resolutions back to the assessors in the cities and townships in a timely fashion. Waiting till the 27th, which is your next regular meeting, just wouldn't give us appropriate time to get them back to them. So we're hoping, we had our fingers crossed that 304 goes down to 300.
I have a real quick question
Yes.
about that. I know this was before my time, but we changed to summer tax collection.
Correct.
Would it behoove us to move it to winter or not?
We would not want to do that for the purpose of our summer tax collection allows us to, at least currently, pay bills without having to borrow.
Okay.
And so, as you know, we go through a full month without receiving a state aid payment toward, I believe, the end of August, is it? Or September? September. And so that, at that point in time, we talk about fund balance, but you could also use the word cash flow. Those two words go simultaneously. And if you look in September, our fund balance is not anywhere near that 7 or 8 or 9% figure, because we don't have a state aid payment. For many districts, they have to borrow to bridge that gap. We do not at this point in time, primarily due to the summer tax collection.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? And that'll come up on that's our only item on our agenda for June 13th.
At this point, yes.
Purchase of vehicles.
I provided you a detailed page about the purchase of vehicles and hopefully kept you up to date in the update. As Ms. Thrift talked about, we held on to many pieces of equipment for over a year, but the more you hold on to that equipment, the more likely it is that you'll end up having to do repairs as it just sits idle. We held an auction, raising nearly, I believe, $50,000 in that auction. And we are asking for your approval to purchase from that figure a John Deere Gator multi-purpose vehicle. You notice that the purchase price of $6,900 is below the state bid threshold, and yet we still took bids, and I provided you that information. The John Deere multi-purpose vehicle provides us a great deal of flexibility, but mostly it allows us to do needed maintenance to the stadium turf, where we are actually extracting the plastic grass up, as well as periodically laying new chrome rubber as that gets used and doing that. That's one vehicle. The other vehicle is the 2013 Chevy truck. I put in your explanation that the board approved the purchase of 2 trucks 2 years ago that we chose, even though you approved not to purchase at the time for budget constrictions. Well, those trucks now that we use are now 2 years older. They're in even worse shape. And because of the equipment sale, we are able to purchase that truck as well as put money back into the general fund, because we sold more than we're expending. The reason why we're asking you to both consider and approve at the same meeting is because we actually, through a very positive relationship with a vendor here in town, is that St. Clair Chevrolet? St. Clair Chevrolet, they're holding a used vehicle for us that we identified and worked with them until after this meeting today. They would not be willing to hold it until at the end of June. And it's a very low mileage vehicle. Rather than going out for a brand new one, we believe this is, again, the best use of those funds. And then finally, we expressed the van for food service. It is a brand new van. You know that it's used every day, carrying food in between the schools. That's why it's high mileage. And again, will not be coming out of the general fund either. Will be coming out of the fund balance from the cafeteria fund. So that's what I know.
Comments or questions? All right, we'll be voting on that shortly.
Yes.
Next item, bond proposal update.
Well, our community spoke on May 3rd regarding the bond proposal, and we now need to take some time to better understand what they said to us. And we know that they said no in terms of that proposal, but we would really like to find out why. I have been in contact with all 9 clerks from townships and cities, spoken to them directly and personally, and have requested what they call special voter lists. Those are the names and addresses of those people who actually voted in that election. That's all they give you, name and address, not phone numbers or how they voted or anything like that. I've received that information from 6 of the 9 jurisdictions. I'll be following up this week to try to get the other 3 lists. At that point in time, we are going to do a survey of those who voted, specifically asking them their primary reason for how they voted, so that we can better understand as we move forward, because we must move forward because the buildings are still in considerable need. With that in mind, as we try to understand from our community the reasons why, we will also schedule various focus groups after we receive the survey to talk about the results directly with them to better understand and let them have some say as well. But in the meantime, as I have shared with you, the 18 mil non-homestead levy, again, that makes up approximately a third of our operating revenue, or $14 million, expires in June of 2017. Those levies are usually 10 years in duration. It is 18 mills non-homestead, meaning that homeowners get to vote on it but don't have to pay it. Those who pay it are people who would have second homes in our school district and or business and industry. And again, it is a renewal. It is not an increase in any way. We do not want to let that go until the very last possible moment. So we will be looking at putting the 18 mil non-homestead on the November ballot for renewal. We will look to renew for the longest period of time that we can, minimum of 10 years, and if we can renew for any longer, we'll take that under consideration as well. While we are working on that, we'll be doing a parallel process, as I've said, to get together with you information for a subsequent building and site proposal that addresses our building and classroom needs that I believe are still very apparent.
Timeline for the 18 mills that we have to have all our ballot language and everything completed?
You as a board won't have to act to call that election until July because it's in November, but I will look to see if, in fact, maybe it's even August, but we'll look to, now that we've discussed it here openly about what's coming up, we'll look to put it on the agenda either in June or July. And then we'll start working on getting out information to our public about what that 18 mills is and why it's so very, very crucial to the operation of the district. We cannot lose $14 million in operating funds.
Correct. Next item on the agenda is superintendent evaluation. And to this, I owe the Board of Education an apology with me taking an 8-day leave of absence. I did not complete the synopsis for you to review prior to this meeting. And so I've got all the information. I promise I will have the synopsis to you by end of next week. And at that point, this would be put on the June ballot to vote. As we made the corrections in superintendent's contract, last year, we changed all of dates to June as his contract dates in order to sort of qualify with all the teachers and administrators and all the other evaluations that were due. So I would ask that we postpone this and put it on our June ballot.
Agenda.
Or agenda, pardon me, our June agenda, and I will have the synopsis to you, which includes all of the online comments from staff and whoever filled one out online, and of course our own, a tally of our own evaluations. Comments or questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, my apologies. Item E, we added back on, are now the minutes of the March 21st corrected and payment of bills.
I believe you might have to do those as separate motions, now that they've been removed from the consent agenda.
Open them up for discussion. So I would need a motion.
Do we need to discuss, or do we just need
We need a motion to
vote?
Just need
Vote,
you need a
yeah.
motion for the minutes first.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the regular board meeting, March 21st and April 25th.
April was approved in the
April was
consent
approved,
agenda.
This March corrected.
Yeah.
Well,
Have a support?
support.
Support, Mrs. Murphy. Comments and questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye, and I would like to qualify my no vote by saying that in the March 21st, 2016 corrected minutes, it provided information in there that was not accurate.
Okay.
Like to make a
needed for-
motion to approve the payment of bills.
Support, Mrs. Murphy. Comments and questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Item 8, board action agenda items. Per administration recommendation, the Board of Education approves the RESA budget resolution indicating that you have reviewed and support the SCC RESA budget for 2016-17. Motion is needed.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kennegbauer,
Second.
supported by Mr. Distorat. Comments, questions? Mr. Richley.
Just one thing. I'm voting no. Obviously, it's symbolic because whether we approve or disapprove, it doesn't matter. But they did not change their administrative budget from the prior year, and they continue to cut student programs without cutting their administration, leading by example in my view. So I'm going to be voting no.
I'd like to ask for the record what programs they have cut as week,
Not in the last year. I'm
Not-
talking about
because they have
cuts
added,
that they already.
because they have added at least 3 programs, a couple specific to special ed that have become very valuable to districts.
I'm talking specifically with the tech budget when in
Well.
2014
And
when they made those cuts.
and construction is being brought back, so.
Anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
You better. All right.
Item B, recommendation, action, per administration recommendation, the Board of Education approves the purchase of a John Deere Gator for $6,943.34, a 2013 Chevrolet truck for $16,998, and a Chevrolet van for our food service program for $22,976 as presented and discussed.
So moved.
Support.
Supported? Comments, questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank St. Clair Chevrolet for saving that for us.
Well, and Mr. Grzelka, who went out and did the legwork to bid these things and to work with that dealership to hold that. So,
Thank you. Item 9 is closed session for the purpose of discussing negotiations. Recommended action that the Board of Education goes into closed session pursuant to Section 8C of the Open Meetings Act, Act 267 of 1976, that being for the board discussion connected with negotiations of a collective bargaining agreement. And Section 8D of the Open Meetings Act, Act 267 of 1976, that being to consider the purchase or lease of real property, but only up until the time an option to purchase or lease the real property is obtained. I'd like to take a roll call vote. A motion is needed.
So moved.
Moved,
Support.
supported. Mrs. Murphy?
Yes.
Mrs. Frank?
Yes.
Mrs. Bebut?
Yes.
Mr. Kennerbauer?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Richley?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Just right. So moved. When we return, the items of our next regular board meeting are the ECSD retirees, the ECSD 2015-16 budget final revisions, and the ECSD 2016-17 budget approval of the original budget. We will adjourn after that. Thank you so much. Have a blessed evening.